Hello, and welcome to Right to Be Wrong, the show that revives the art of conversation, accommodating varied views on sports, culture, politics, world events, and every topic under the sun. After all, you have a right to be wrong. Here are your hosts, Dave and Tony.
Tone's coming to the end of the year, which means you're going to get a break. Your ears won't bleed on a Monday night listening to my dribble. But it also means that we are going to look back at 2025, a year in review. It's been interesting. There's been some shocks to some. There's been some good sporting events. It's been an interesting year. Nothing in particular that's been absolutely outrageous globally, but certainly some interesting stuff.
I'd agree, Dave. It's been, on the personal front, it's been a good year. Involved in a lot of stuff, keeping busy. But there's this undercurrent of I think lack of progress in terms of a society and economy on many fronts, right? And I did a bit of research, and if you look at high level, right, especially people of our cohort, trying to get by, employed, generate a decent wage, can live relatively comfortable with a bit of constraint, but increasingly you feel like, why doesn't life seem to be getting easier?
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's getting harder.
But
I also think that's a Sydney thing.
Yeah, Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, right?
Yeah.
I get it. So we've tried to navigate this cost of living is a big issue economically, people getting by. But mind you, Dave, I'm probably sounding like my mum because she used to say it all the time. She used to say, all these people complaining about no money. Every time I go to the shops, it's packed. And 3 weeks ago, I was up at the Castle Towers and I'm looking around going, people can't move in here. Right?
There's a lot of people there, but how many shopping bags were there?
Yeah, true.
Because I've said this to the Mauritian Queen when we were up there a couple of weeks ago too, because we avoid shopping centres like the plague. We're just not, we're going to be that couple that once we leave Sydney, we're going to live like hermits.
Yeah.
And everyone's going, that weird couple, they're just always together. They've been living in that cave.
Especially the bloke.
Years.
Especially the bloke.
Yeah, the fat bald one, he's just strange.
He must be rich.
How do you get that good?
Well,
How do you get that gorgeous woman?
So let's start with some Australian themes, Dave. So the cost of living was still dominant. Housing policy pressure, that continues to be a focus, right? I honestly think the housing policy pressure...
Until Albo turns off the migration tap.
I think that could bring them undone completely, right? But I actually think it's that.
The average person's starting to really talk about it.
I know, but it's a lot of other things as well, right? And I think that's an easy one to point at and it's a meaningful one, but it's a whole lot of other things, right? They've got to just nail the 3 or 4 main things that drive this housing pressure, housing policy pressure. They need to stare into that and come up with a plan. And neither side of politics has done it. And I reckon it's going to be a noose around their neck. So that'll continue. Institutions under scrutiny. So this erosion of trust in politics, media, regulators, and this growing influence of social media and how that plays into it. And then in Australia, which is quite unique for our overseas listeners, our state governments literally run a lot of the services that are critical to our everyday. So the state government in the state that we live in, Dave and I, New South Wales, they're responsible for hospitals. They're responsible for health, obviously hospitals. They're responsible for roads. They're responsible for education. These are the meaningful things that impact our lives on a daily basis. But the funding for that, a lot of it is federally funded.
Which is a strange model.
So there's this.
It's like a marriage. You make the money and your wife spends it.
That's right. What's yours is yours and what's mine is yours as well.
Yeah, that's it.
So
that's a happy marriage. If you're doing that, you've got a happy marriage.
Yeah, so from an Australian perspective, there's been these underlying themes of, I think people are struggling, right? And people are wondering, are we ever going to get to the point where we can live more comfortably? And I think the cost of living has led us down a path where the only thing saving us from real pain is unemployment or employment.
Yeah, but I heard something the other day that our unemployment numbers are very skewed.
Go on.
They said the private sector unemployment is actually mid-5s, 5.5. Our overall number at 4.3, but that's because 67% of the job creation since the Albanese government came into office is in government positions.
Yeah.
And that's that's not good, right? Because you can eradicate unemployment easily. Let's say you had 10 million people unemployed. Any government in the world can fix unemployment with a stroke of a pen because you create 10 million government jobs, 5 million people dig holes, and 5 million people fill them in. That's not productive. That's not good. So I think that's one of the big problems we actually have here is that we need to shrink government bureaucracies, cool down the government spending, particularly on the national disability insurance scam, and let the private sector create the market conditions for the private sector to start doing the heavy lifting again.
But I think, Dave, it's a bit like, do we take our pain now or do we want to be death by 1,000 cuts? Because all of these decisions that government makes on our behalf are underpinned by the ability to borrow money to fund it all, right? And in my mind, logically, everything tells me that at some point there's going to be a reckoning, right?
Yeah, I think it's coming.
There's going to be but I think to myself, Dave, nothing makes sense to me when I hear governments can just keep on printing money, which they can. Yep. At some point, you need to pay the price, right? So we need to make really hard decisions over a 10-year period that smells like we are going to run budget surpluses. And that excess money that we create every year because we're generating more revenue than we're actually spending on services and cutting back, we are going to repay debt, not interest and principal, and wind back our debt. But
Which is a common problem all amongst the West because all of Western civilizations run the same migration, open border, money printing, expanding social welfare, endless, finance everything now, not just your house. We'll finance your tits, your teeth.
But I think
everything.
But the US is a bit of an exception there. What I mean is they've got the same model, but they don't necessarily go and fund it into services. Like they might provide bigger tax breaks for the wealthy, whatever it might be, but irrespective, the level of spending or
they still have some big government bureaucracies.
Yeah, absolutely. The level of spending or the level of foregone revenue that the government accepts through subsidies or rebates of whatever form, that gap at the end of the year is funded by debt. Right? And I actually think if a political party could just have a clear message that sounded like, we just want our governments to act responsibly, fiscally responsibly, in the same way that we're forced to. Because when when the bank comes to me and says, where's your mortgage payment? It's not a matter of saying, just hold on there. My printing machine for the money is not working this week. Can you come back to me?
Give me a couple of weeks.
So I think increasingly people want government to act in the same way that we're forced to act given the conditions that we face. High cost of living, our wages, which is our revenue, not growing as quickly as the cost of living, which means in order to balance the books at the end of the year, we need to make some decisions. Now, a lot of people in their mind are saying, I can afford to run deficits in my own household and spend more than I actually make, because at the same time I'm doing that, my biggest asset being the house that I live in has gone up 6%. So notionally, I'm actually better off.
I'm on paper rich.
That's right. And I think that's a big issue, Dave.
As my brother would say, barley rich.
It's asset rich, cash poor at the moment. We're all paper multi-millionaires at the moment.
Well, without getting too bogged down in this, just in regard to when you say take the pain now or death by 1,000 cuts, we should be taking the pain now, but that requires two things. The first is a government that wants to lead and accepts we might get voted out here, but hindsight, everyone's going to go,
we needed it.
Good decision. So you need to accept you'll get the kudos later. And the second part is people need to accept that we've got to take some pain individually and collectively.
Right. But we've got to take individual pain, and sometimes it might be a disproportionate share of the individual pain that we contribute for a collective outcome.
Correct.
And in an environment, Dave, where increasingly people are selfish, and the undefeated champion of the world in all aspects of life is
reality
and self-interest.
Yeah.
Right? People put themselves first. That's a tough message.
Well, I'd put self-interest under reality, right? That's the reality of life. People are self-interested.
But I think, Dave, if across all Western governments, but let's just focus on Australia at the moment, if any political party came out with something that sounded like, no, we are going to consistently run surpluses. We are going to balance the books, and we're going to make the hard decisions that are required. We're not interested in populism. We're not interested in, nice to haves. We're not interested in spending money on programs that might make people feel good but deliver 2/5 of you know what. Then I honestly think there's a whole slab of people in the middle that will go, I'm with them.
Yeah,
And that approach, you wouldn't even have to mention migration, because by default, right, if you do all that stuff, you're basically saying we can't afford it, so then it's cut.
correct. But let's not get too bogged down, because you'll wind me up and it'll be like a 5-day test of what's going wrong in Western countries. But the point being, 2025 has been a year of stagnation across Western society. In fact, it's still going backwards. We're still increasing the debt. Yeah, that's just the reality. So 2025, not been a good year fiscally around Western society. Will 2026 be any better? Well, I guess 2026 year in review on the R2BW podcast. We'll find out.
I know. Let's touch on now, Dave, one of our favourites, and we've kind of shied away from some of this stuff recently due to some revenue constraints of our own.
Yeah.
Global politics and a fractured world order. So in the US, this ongoing political polarization, right, and how it's impacted how it runs. Like their foreign policy now is increasingly shaped by domestic politics rather than global leadership. Do you think they've withdrawn from the global leadership throne?
I don't think they've withdrawn from global leadership. I think there's reality is kicking in. And interestingly, I actually watched a clip today from a former, what was her name? She was in the Biden administration. She might have been the former foreign secretary, openly admitting, and anyone can watch this, openly admitting that as Zelensky is now talking about, okay, I'll take NATO off the table as part of our, can we keep our land if I stay out of NATO? Openly admitting, maybe we should consider that before the war, right? And admitting that NATO expansion's a problem. Here's something with the Trump foreign policy. Here's something with Trump in general, but Trump foreign policy. I don't believe Trump's a foreign policy aficionado at all, right? I think it's actually, I think there's an element there that he can look good because of the way he's no bullshit. And what I mean by that is he just wants a deal. If the deal's good for America and it looks good for him, deal's done, right? That's it. No bullshit. Some of the things come off, it looks like he's a foreign policy genius because he's no bullshit. When it comes to withdrawing from the global stage, it's not because he's weak. It's not because he's actually brilliant. It's because reality is kicking in that we are returning to a multipolar world, and the US needs to now focus and say two things. What's in our genuine national interest that's at the top of the hierarchy?
Yep.
And what is it we can maintain and we can control? Where's our sphere of influence? So we can no longer call Iraq our sphere of influence, right? All these far off places. So they're focused on the Western Hemisphere. So they're focusing now on South America. This is around us. This is our region of influence. China's now the genuine big threat. Let's close off Russia, Ukraine. Russia, we keep an eye on it. But guess what? You're talking about a country of 170 million against Europe that's got 370 million that's relying on us to fund it, that your GDP is 5 times Russia's. At some point, solve your own problem.
And I agree. So I agree with that completely. Say that.
So what's actually happening?
So with Trump is saying, listen, Russia, you do what you do, right? Europe, they're your problem.
Correct.
Right?
So what I think with Trump is Trump has a bit of a knack. One thing he is a truth teller. Now, I know people are going, what I mean is there's Trump, the bullshit artist, the showman, the entertainer, playing domestic politics, right? And then there's Trump that actually sees things, calls things, and it's an uncomfortable truth that he said a lot, called a lot that turns out to be true. So, for example, he said in Trump 1.0 about Sweden, you've got a problem with, the gangs, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, we don't. Cover everything up. And then, yep. There's him at the UN telling Germany, you're relying upon Russian energy. It's going to come back to bite you, all this stuff. And they're laughing at him. They're laughing at him like he's a buffoon, only for him to be right.
Yeah.
Trump's right again on NATO. It's like, it's your problem. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, it was set up post World War II. This is your problem. Stop asking the Rust Belt to put their taxes in to fund your military that you don't have to fight an enemy that you don't have the courage to stand up to. So there's certain things like that I think, the year in review. If I was giving Trump a report card on his foreign policy front, I'd say it's a pretty good one. I'd say it's sort of an 8.5.
Like, I think he's progressed things, right?
He has.
Now, through his own style, right, which is very unique, right? A lot of bluster, but he's progressed a few. So I've got no problem with his more America first approach. I think Europe needs to be a bit more European, right? Because like a lot of Western civilization was born out of Europe, right? Yeah. So they need to put their big boy pants on.
And when Russia's arrested 400 people last year for what they've said on social media, and the UK's arrested 4,000.
Yep.
I'm sorry, UK, and this is not Iceland. And the Germans have a problem with free speech.
I don't think UK is part of Europe anymore.
So no, I've never. To me, whenever people say that, even when they were in the EU, no, there's the UK and
That's
Europe.
Right.
It's always been separate. But the point I'm making is, places that fought against fascism and Nazism have taken on fascist Nazi ideologies. Mm. And before people say, well, what's the Nazi part? I get the fascist part, the government, the dictatorship, the free speech. Well, guess what anti-Semitism is? Guess what parading down the streets all the time calling for the death of Israel is? Well, there's no difference. That's what the Nazis wanted. But anyway, for 2025, I think Trump's actually, whether by luck or by brilliance, let me even scrap that. I won't even say what I was going to say. The reality of what Trump 2.0 is bringing is shining a light on whose responsibility is to take care of some things. He is starting to get people to wake up and go, well, is it really the US's problem and the US taxpayer to foot everyone's bill?
No, it's not.
And it's not.
Yeah, and I agree. But then in saying that, there should be a humongous load of savings coming into US Treasury that they should be doing something with.
Yes.
Right.
If you're going to not fund NATO and the UN and all these things, which I agree with, show me that $500 billion. Show me the infrastructure repairs. Right. Whatever it is you're doing domestically.
I know. I think that's where, it's still it's less than a year, isn't it? It's about a year. It'll be a year in January. Yep. I still think the outcomes that he's delivered for the people he said he was going to deliver them for, the jury's still out on that.
Oh, you still got a lot to do. And to be honest, even if Trump 2.0 was amazing, he won't hit all the targets because the issues America has will take 10, 20, 30 years. So it's one of the things we don't like to accept, and the same as Australia. Like my view of our current government, our current administration, I think Anthony Albanese is the dumbest we've ever had. I think Chris Bowen, I think Penny Wong, what's the other clown? For me, I think they're clowns, right? And I'm very critical. However, to be clear, that doesn't mean I think everything was great and they've broken everything. I think there's people in the last 20 or 30 years that has been dominated by the coalition that need to take a long, hard look at themselves of how we got to this. Why is our migration as high as what it is? Why is our housing policy what it is? Why are our young struggling? Why are our universities got too many people there doing bullshit degrees, overrun by hate-filled, far-left nut jobs? Like, for me, my criticism of the current doesn't absolve the past.
And I think that's why. That's a really good point, Dave, because politically, the gotcha moments are, and the elbows and these governments in the crosshairs at the moment for a lot of reasons.
And let me clarify too before people go, well, why do you think he's so dumb? Well, he's either dumb or evil, because at some point now he needs to accept that everyone knows the world's not now ending, because even the Greta Thunbergs are not saying it. We know that, okay, there are some aspects of what you would call green that might work. There's others that don't, or they cost too much. So at some point you've got to turn around and go, hey, Bobo, let's ease up on our wind farms and our solar panels a little bit, and let's get some, we need to get these power bills down, right? So that's one. At some point he's going to go, we're not going to get enough housing. Let's slow down the migration. Like at some point he needs to go, I held these policy positions, even if you've held them since uni. At some point he's going to go, the rubber's hitting the road and it's not working out the way I thought. I need to change tack, even if even if it's not for the greater good, you just go, I need to change tack because I want to be Prime Minister for 25
That's
years.
right.
If I don't, I won't get voted back in.
And that's what I think. That's what's alarming me.
There's no change.
But the lack of even acknowledgement that, or someone in that sphere, you're reading the room, like you actually not even reading the right room at the moment.
No,
not even the right potentially hotel or suburb. Right? It's
the Canberra bubble.
And I'm just thinking to myself, these people need to wake up. Right?
Yeah.
And you're right.
To me, that's a key, right? And it goes both ways. A good leader will go, I held that policy. I still believe in it, but maybe I'm early. Now's not the time. We need to adapt.
That's right. And they're not, clearly. So domestically, the US, Dave, every time I just watch some current affairs or follow it on socials, man, they are just so divided.
Yeah.
Right. So divided. I can't see how they can ever reconcile to a point where there's a genuine understanding of both sides where they go, yep, I don't agree with that, but I know that it's going to deliver outcomes for, a large minority or a small majority of people, and they've got the power and the mandate to implement that because they won the election. I'll just see how it plays out. They should be given the platform to do that. I just can't see how it's going to resolve itself in the US. And you and I joke about it, right? But then increasingly in the world we live in, I go, maybe it's not a joke. Maybe they are going to end up in some type of civil war again, right?
Yeah, well, I could go down it, but we'll take up too much time for our year in review. So maybe what we'll do early in the new year is a Divided States of America episode.
I like that, Dave. Now let's move out. So we've taken the US. What about Europe, Dave? So the economic concerns around the Western world, Europe's at the center of that. Migration is politically destabilizing across. There's different views across Europe, but I reckon they're all shifting back to the center, and a bit to the right, which is fine.
Well, just on that, Angela Merkel was probably one of the leaders of that open border policy, and I heard something to the effect that she was, when it first started, she wasn't necessarily on board. That she thought she wasn't like a Klaus Schwab globalist, but her view was, given our history, the last thing the world needs to see is German border guards turning people away. Now, I get it, but it's the old, two wrongs don't make a right. I think they're now finding out, like this whole concept of, just because someone turns up to your country, they're going to love it, they're going to want to learn the language. Like, no, the right type of people should be coming in, and then you leave a space for genuine refugees out of war, out of natural disaster or whatever it is.
I know, but I think I've yet to see the mix of what the right people are in Australia, for example. Like, what do we need in terms?
I think we have.
I
think we proved it.
No, what I mean is, Dave, in terms of the current government,
right? In terms of
where's the policy that tells us? And I've said this multiple times in the last 3 or 4 months. Where's the plan that says what do we want to be in 2040?
None.
Why do we want to be that number?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? You've brought me along the ride. I'm happy with your why we want to be that number. Okay, let me know how.
Exactly.
Can the how deliver the why? No, it can't. Okay, well then change your why.
That's right.
Right. And that's what I struggle with. So I think Europe, the other thing for Europe is
well, I think it's a turning point for Europe because I think the reality is also about to kick in that they're not militarily.
They're not ready.
No.
And what's more, from an energy perspective, they're more insecure now than they've ever been.
Yeah. And they turned around and the head of NATO was saying to be ready for war with Russia within 5 years.
I saw that.
Now, I don't think he should have said that. I think that what he should have said is, we've realised we're underprepared, for example, with war with Russia, but you're starting to give timelines.
Yeah.
Like so you want it?
I know.
Is that what you're saying?
It's funny you mentioned timelines because I want to move to China and I want to touch on quickly.
The China virus.
The China virus. When did our old mate Xi tell us he was going to take Taiwan again?
The alleged time is he's told the PLA to prepare by 2027, which is the 100-year anniversary of the People's Liberation Army.
Okay, fine. So more broadly with China, slower growth and more political control. Yeah?
Yeah, well, China's people like Peter Zahan, I need to watch a bit more of his stuff because he's pretty sharp guy. I can't say I always agree with everything, but that's par for the course. He's of the view that China will collapse in the next 10 years under the weight of their debt levels and lack of population.
Yep.
Which sounds odd for their purported population, but no one's having babies there either.
Mm.
So, yeah.
So what about, Dave, the continued assertiveness in like trade, technology, and regional influence? And before you answer, think about if the US have said the Western Hemisphere is theirs, Russia, Europe's your problem, or Russia's your problem, deal with it. Yeah. How far does Chinese influence stretch across the Pacific then?
Well, it all depends on if they want
south
to take out.
and east.
That's right. That's what's likely to be, because it's a bit like what the Japanese used to call the Nanjing Plan in the Second World War, which is to drive south and east. It wouldn't surprise me if they had eyes on Australia.
So when you say like
if you turn around, you take out Japan, right? So you take Taiwan. Japan's the powerhouse. After that, who have you really got? Like the Philippines, not strong enough to really get you. Vietnam, they've still got, echoes of Ho Chi Minh, so they're probably likely to be more favourable than anything. South Korea, again, too small, because if it really kicked off between North Korea and China on them, what are you down to? You're the buffer zone of Indonesia and Australia. That's really what it comes.
And can I ask, does Japan have nukes?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Because they're not supposed to, right?
No.
Because that's what they signed.
Correct. Part of, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting for me. So in this multipolar world, you said there's Russia, Europe.
Yeah.
Russia doing whatever.
Russia, Eastern Europe, and Central Asia.
Yeah.
The stands.
That's right.
Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and the like. Tajikistan.
And there's like Eastern Asia and Southern Asia.
Yeah.
Right. Is under the influence of China, and then in the West, it's under the influence of the US, and that's why Donnie, half jokingly, half serious, said he wants to take over Canada and Mexico, right?
Well, there's a fair chunk of Canada that wants to join. Alberta, places they actually want to join the US. They've had enough of being the piggy bank for the Ottawans and whatnot. So that wouldn't surprise me if 2026, 27, we start seeing some genuine conversations about cessation from Canada.
Before we shift away from the political side of it, just give me an early call 11 months out on the midterms.
At this stage, I would suggest the pattern looks like it would go the way of what it normally does, which is the House would flip based on history of being the party that's not in power. Their people are chomping at the bit to get back in, and there's a little bit of apathy the other way. Having said that, depending on what goes on with the redistricting, which is going on, what goes on with the Voter Rights Act in the Supreme Court, so how the Supreme Court comes down, and what the Don pulls out of the bag in the 3 to 6 months leading into the midterms to encourage people, because for some reason the Dems should be in the box seat, but they keep doing dumb shit. Like, for example, there are states like New York and I think California and others are strongly blue that are still taxing tips.
Yeah.
So what it looks like is, I said no tax on tips, but Governor Hochul and Governor Newsom, they're taking your tips. So it's one of those things that, like, why would you do that? That's like, I get it, the loss, but there are some things Trump's doing quite well at the moment at getting onto the 70, 30, 80, 20 issues, those issues where basically it's overwhelming support.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting because I think there are some people hurting over there, and it's going to be interesting to see.
It depends on how what are you hurting before the vote, right? Because let's face it, most people have short-term memories.
That's right. So
and if you turn around and you just got a $2,000 tariff check.
Yeah.
2 weeks out.
I know. And he could do that, right? Yeah. He's got the money. All I'm saying is a lot of that's borrowed.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway.
That's going to be that money's not borrowed, but it should be going to the borrowings.
If
you're getting money off the tariffs, you should be paying down the debt.
That's right. But what I'm saying is
you should be saying this is what your dividend is that we're reducing the debt.
That's right. It's a double whammy, but because those tariffs by default, they're on products that have already been imported into the US that are now at a higher price than they used to be. So mum and dad consumer have paid for that.
Yeah.
And you're giving them back money. Like the farmers are going to get a kickback. I think he's put $12 billion into the agricultural industry to help ease some of the pain. But that's for him to manage. But I actually think he could pull something out of his clacker and deliver some benefit, which could swing in a pretty big way some of his base.
And don't get me wrong, there's a couple of big scandals that are really going to hurt the Democrats.
Go on.
So the Minnesota, the Somali stuff in
Yeah,
Minnesota.
Yep.
Let's face it, no one in any country likes when you find out your tax dollars have just been completely ripped off to the tune of billions of dollars like that, and your governor was aware and sort of, I don't want to be called racist, so let's keep it a bit quiet. So that's an issue there. Obviously, as I said, Gavin Newsom's caught between a rock and a hard place because he literally came out in the podcast and was very sensible and said, I meant to send this to you, I'm not sure if you saw it, but he said it's time for the Democrats to stop being so crazy culturally. You know, the men can't be women stuff, and let's move back to the center because we're getting known as the party of crazy.
Who said that?
Gavin Newsom.
Wow.
Yeah, because he's positioning himself for a run, right? So he needs to.
And I'm not going to lie, Dave. He's a very attractive man.
He's so good looking.
Not in the Dave Lodge category, but he's up there. He's up there, Dave.
Yeah, well, if I had hair, I'd grease it back.
If he asked me to be on a podcast, I would ditch you instantaneously.
Oh, of course, Tone. How could you not go with someone like Gavin Newsom?
I'd probably get a full body wax as well.
Well, Gavin Newsom, obviously, that was a sensible thing, right? Because he's playing to the country.
Yeah, that's right.
But 2 weeks later, he's on another podcast. It's like he's got to try and play to California only. And he starts talking about he wants to see more trans kids. Like, you can't get away with that today because that's recorded and that's just going to be played. One of the biggest things that worked for Trump in the last election was literally one of the biggest ads that turned out that played well was Kamala's for they, them, Trump's for you.
Yeah.
Right. So Gavin's caught between this. He went so in on it. Now he's realized, holy shit, I'm not just going to run for governor in California with all the nut jobs voting for me. So he's painting himself in a corner there.
So in terms of global trends, Dave, shift away from globalization.
We actually, if anyone wants to listen, we did an episode called, is globalization dead under Trump? We probably should do a follow up on that because that was with Gary. I've been listening back to a few of the old ones. Gary's welcome to come on and defend himself. I'll never say anything that, not give him a chance. But I've been listening back, and he did say in a couple of times, mark my words. So I'll call him out on that because the Mauritian Queen actually put it to me and goes, he got a lot of things wrong. He goes, do you think some of the positions he's had where he thinks he's smarter than what he is, he was a DEI hire? And I looked and I thought, well, listen back. And I'm not talking opinion. We can all get some things wrong. Like I thought Zelensky would be gone by now, right? So we get things wrong. But some of he literally in our pre-US election one was so adamant that abortion was going to be it. And he's marked my words. And I listen back and I go, wow, you were so far, unbelievably far off. But anyway, we did a podcast. Is globalization dead under Trump?
And another one we did, another podcast we did was on looking through whole lot of issues, including energy as a national security issue or national security lens. So increasingly
economically and militarily.
So trade, defense, technology, energy, it's all looked through like a national security lens now, right? So the stuff you're pulling out of the ground, who's it going to? What are they building it with? Are we at some point going to be relying on that to get it back? And that effectively explains Australia in the last 30 years because now China's got us by the short and curlies.
China's bitch.
That's right. And we have to deal with that. So
in fact, for us, getting back to your earlier thing about taking pain, the most common area where Australia would probably have to take pain is to decouple from our reliance on China. And I'm not saying nothing from them, but we need to accept we can't have our universities full of Chinese students.
That's right.
We can't have China sell us back steel from our iron ore. We can't have China be our major trade partner on wheat and beef and so on. We need to get all our eggs out of the one basket. We need to diversify, and we need to. One of the things I want to do an episode. Should Australia bet the farm AI go? Because I think data centers. We should become hosting a lot of data centers. We should go down the nuclear path and go, hey, we've got the uranium. We can run these centers that are sucking up 5 times power quite cheaply. We're surrounded by water. We can cool them. So I think there's a number of areas that we could move into the fourth industrial revolution as a market leader that would start to pick up some of the slack as we decouple from China.
But again, Dave, it takes courage, right?
It does.
And that takes pain. So decouple from China, and then everything we buy goes up by 7%.
Maybe we just have to accept that everyone's going to have to sell one of their kids' kidneys to China.
I was just thinking, which kid am I going to sell first?
Who's been the best this last week? Paddy or Dom?
Jeez. I'm not going to. No, that'll get back, bro. That'll get back.
They listen to the podcast.
And one of them would be accepting of it. The other one will come after me.
So would it be like Squid Game style?
Yeah, it would be. It would be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm not going there. So, Dave, if we shift from politics to sport, give me some sporting highlights for 2025.
Well, I thought the fact that Penrith didn't win the NRL, was that a highlight? I mean, the Broncos returned to what many would believe their rightful place, not me being a Broncos fan, but what I mean is
Bronx
they're a
Nation,
powerhouse.
bro. Bronx Nation.
Yeah, they're a powerhouse. So probably the breaking of the dynasty there, which in the US, we're probably just seeing now the Kansas City Chiefs, so the end of their dynasty.
Yeah, I see Patrick Mahomes did an ACL today.
He did. I
Right.
saw that. For the Formula One was fantastic because it went right down to the last race. Anyone of Lando, Oscar, and Max could win. So I loved that. I thought that was a great season. Cricket wise, it's all over. Red Rover, the Aussies were already up 2-0, and the Poms are done and dusted. Nothing big in the soccer front because next year we got the World Cup, so that'll be
huge.
That'll be a very big year. Very big year for football, Tone.
I know.
I'll use the term football. Stan, that's for you.
I'll touch on a couple. I think the AFL this year was won by the Brisbane Lions. What I love about the AFL is it is a genuine competition where you draft, or if you finish at the bottom of the ladder over a sustained period and you get to build through the draft and you acquire the right people and you build a culture, you can have sustained success. And Brisbane have managed to win back-to-back titles on the back of that. 8 years ago,
I would like a draft in the NRL, but only once the expansion's finalised.
I think so. But the whole restraint of trade thing and everything that kicked off 30 years ago, and they tried to implement it. So that was, I really enjoy the sport of AFL because when you go to Melbourne and you realise how they treat it like a religion, right? You just become part of it. And you go to the MCG, you walk to the Coliseum, it's fantastic. What I don't enjoy about the AFL is the fact that the AFL themselves, this billion-dollar company that could probably borrow another billion given the reserves that it's got to leverage against the debt, still wants to go cap in hand to government and ask for a handout to build a freaking stadium in Hobart. Rack off. You know what I mean?
It surprised me that it's taken so long to get it. Like, I know Tasmania's not huge in terms of population, but they're not rugby league people. They're cricket and AFL people.
That's right.
And you would have thought that as a national competition, you're not talking about expansion into rugby league territory. You're like, will we commit the money? Like these are rusted on people that deserved a team and a stadium a long time ago. Now,
and what's more, Dave, a couple of years ago, the Tasmanian Jack Jumpers, they won the NBL title, the National Basketball. And
although I think that's the shittest name for a team in the history of sports.
I know, but there would have been some marketing people do a survey, Dave. And
that's worse than the Arkansas Boondoggles, the Flint Tropics.
The Flint Tropics.
But Jackie, I tried to cash the check and they just won't check it.
Corn dogs, Jackie, for everyone.
But Tropics, love it.
They won the National Basketball League. The whole state was behind them. So when the team gets down there and they start playing, they'll get around them, right? It'll create a whole lot of activity for Hobart and Tasmania, the state, and their state government coffers will swell because of the tourism.
How many teams will that make in the AFL? 18?
I think 18. It is the 18, yep.
18. This is why the NRL will be fine at 20 teams.
Yeah. I think so. So then the other one I want to touch on, Dave, in the US, the World Series this year between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays was like an all-time World Series. Went to the 7th game. The Dodgers are down 5-4, 1 out in the bottom of the 9th. And this bloke that they picked up late in the season, Miguel Rojas, comes in and knocks one out of the park to make it 5-all. Then their catcher, who's been so consistent over a long period of time, knocks one in extra innings to make it 6-5, I think it was. And then this pitcher, this Japanese bloke, who had pitched the night before, which is almost unheard of. He pitched he started a game the night before. He came in in relief in Game 7, and effectively won it for them and saved it for them. And it was just a fantastic sport to watch. It's sportsmen performing at their best, but there's one player, the Japanese guy, Shohei Ohtani, who's just a freak. He pitches and he hits. Like, it's
what more do you need?
What,
Isn't he like the highest paid player?
He is, yeah.
Like,
but it's all deferred. It's 700 million over 10 years, but it's all back-ended in terms of getting a slice of the LA Dodgers at the end.
Right.
But it's just sport at its best when it's at that level is just fantastic to watch.
Well, to me, I love sport in general for the theatre, but I love when sport reaches the stage of religiosity.
Yeah, it does.
I think it's fantastic, right? It's like the Tifosi with the Ferrari in Italy. I just love that, and that's why for me, playing cricket against India, for example, just the passion that's in it, it just brings something out. And what people don't realize, one of the things about sport is that you could be, the poorest person on the planet, but you'll find a place to listen to a radio or watch a TV and just watch that sport. Even if you can never afford a game, you can't afford any merch, like what that gives you at the end of your working day, your working week. The thing I do love about the US sports is it doesn't matter what day of the week it is you finished, there's a game you can watch.
Oh, no.
I love that.
Like the whole fact...
Like, I hate the fact we don't get any game Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, some Thursdays, like in the NRL. Like, I want to be saturated.
But so baseball sums that up, like 162 games in the regular season.
Massive.
And you ride the ups and downs of your team, right? I wake up in the morning, what have the Red Sox done? Who's hitting well?
But what's he do? Gets on base.
That's right. That's right. That gets on base.
Is that me? You looking? You don't? Yeah.
He gets on base.
When I point to you.
Moneyball.
Yeah.
How good. That's a great movie.
That's a great philosophy, though. I wish a few to me, NRL coaches, if you're not at the top and you're trying to rebuild and players just aren't available or you can't attract them, instead just paying ridiculous overs and getting in a hole, I'd love to see someone take a Moneyball approach. But what's he do? Different. He doesn't miss tackles.
That's right.
Right? So our edges are fine. He doesn't miss tackles. What's he do? He makes meters. Yeah. Like, you build a side around that, all of a sudden you're winning half your games.
I know,
then you just need the signing.
But there's a team that's kind of done that over a long period, right?
Well, who's really done that?
No, what I mean, the Melbourne Storm. If you look,
well, I think they do it the other way around. They build the spine. Let's pump it. Let's take our salary cap and let's just bang, 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 and then one man, one job.
That's right.
So that's all.
That's right.
But what I'm talking about is you don't have Harry Grant, Cameron Munster,
I get it.
Paps, Jerome Hughes. What I'm saying is you're the Tigers.
Yep.
So you don't have to go and pay overs for, say, Jerome Luai. But what you want, he makes his tackles. He makes his meters. Build that solid side. And I think that Moneyball approach, I actually think that would work for a couple of teams when you're in the rebuilding phase, rather than just sink yourself into a hole by paying overs for players. And then,
like, I look at Newcastle and they paid 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they went through that ridiculous negotiation with Kalen Ponga, with his old man as manager.
And then they've done it again.
They went all in on him, all right?
And they've just done it again with Dylan Brown.
With Dylan Brown, they go all in. And you say to yourself, in my mind, the board who's approving that must be saying, if we go all in, we would like to make a preliminary final, not even a grand final. But lots of things have to go right, Dave, for that to happen. Even more things in terms of luck, outcomes, injuries, referees' decisions need to go right to win a grand final.
And I think that's one of the problems in the rebuilding phase they make. It's like, I've got to win the next 3 years. It's like, no, you need to build a solid core.
You need to build a solid core,
and a pathway
that can consistently deliver preliminary finals.
Yeah, and then you need to learn how to play big games you start getting them, and then, step by step.
That's why I think the Dogs did well this year. I reckon they're still 2 or 3 years away.
Yeah, so do I.
But they'll keep on building.
Hopefully.
Right.
Although I did discuss with speaking of Newcastle Knights, someone that's perennially in pain is my brother. He's a long-suffering Knights fan. But I did say to him, I'm actually at the stage, unusual for me, because I've been a dog for 51 years, nearly 52. Love the Bulldogs. But
you
the last game...
You can't complain, Dave. Come on, mate.
No. It's
84.
No, we've had a great run. I have zero complaints
88,
about what they've delivered on the
95,
field. Right?
Yeah.
Zero. So I have no... I can be at the bottom. As long as they're fighting, they're moving forward. That's fine. That's the journey, right? Like, you can't always be a winner in sport. I was at the Penrith Bulldogs game, and it was just so... It was a terrible thing. The crowd were just... There's some morons, and I'm like getting to the stage... Do I want to be associated with these morons? Because what a Bulldogs fan was when I grew up, what a Bulldogs fan is now, we all know is different. So I said to my brother, I'm thinking about jumping on the Cows. And ironically, my nephew's just signed with the Cows. So I'm like, Matt, you're finally playing for a team I don't hate. Every team he's been at, I hate him. I said to him, you'll never be my favourite nephew until you play for the Dogs.
How funny. So, Dave, let's talk about I'll throw out some comments and then you can come back to me, okay? No judgment here, Dave. When people
Are we doing a Rorschach test?
What's that?
Well, that's that one with, what you see, the picture.
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
word association type stuff.
Okay.
So
No, not that at all.
Testing how crazy I am.
When people look back on 2025, what will they actually say went right and what quietly went wrong?
Actually, to be honest, it's an interesting year because I don't think there's anything at either side, an amazing high and amazing low. Even like Gaza, like for Trump, say Gaza and Israel, to me, it's still a fragile ceasefire. It's not like necessarily a done deal. He hasn't ended the war in Ukraine. There's nothing. The only thing I'd say is I think he proved don't crap on. We need comprehensive reform to close the U.S. border. That's probably the biggest win I'd see in the political sphere. If someone said, "What's my big win for the year?" I'd say Trump and his border crossings, big win. At the moment, what would be his big loss? Well, I don't see anything in particular, but I am getting worried about Venezuela. And the sports arena, what would I say is the big downside, the big loss? I probably, again, the Formula One being fantastic. I thought it was a great season. That's a bit of a highlight for me in sport. What's the major big down? I thought there's nothing standing out in my mind sports-wise that I think someone, a giant.
Put out.
Yeah, no big downs. In the world, just general current affairs, global affairs. The bad thing for us, we've mentioned in the other episode, that we've just had this situation at Bondi that's so very shocking and surreal to Australia. We have had a terrorist attack before with the Link Cafe, which a couple of people died, but this just feels very, very different. It's like Australia, to me, I feel like Australia will never really be the same again. Certainly the way people are, are they going to sit there so casually on the beach and not be a bit jumpy when a car backfires?
I know.
What's the highs for Australia? I'd still say a consistent high. I still think overall we do complain about things we're getting wrong, government's getting wrong, but at the end of the day, geez, we live in a great place. Like, one thing we can do, and I've mentioned in previous episodes, is where, I'm setting out the path to get out of Sydney. And there's some great places to go and live. And, you can do that in Australia. You go, you know what? I'm checking out.
I'm done.
It's not the Hotel California.
I'm out of Dodge.
Yeah. Where, for example, in the US, if you're a Californian, you go, I can't take this place anymore. They're trying to retrospectively turn around and be able to get you for taxes because you're moving to avoid the taxes. Like, that sort of stuff's insane to me. You live in a Hotel California. It's just not, yeah.
Okay, I get it. Now, so a few more comments, Dave, and obviously I'm looking for your deep insight. Let you put your palms in me. Globally, Dave, I think 2025 confirms something uncomfortable. The old world order is gone.
Oh, it is gone. And in fact, something that Jimmy Carr, the comedian, the English comedian, or his Irish English accent, I think he's Irish passport holder, Irish born, English raised. Very funny guy. But I was watching him on the Trigonometry podcast last week. And if you know anything about Strauss and Howe and fourth turnings, they're Howe's a demographer.
Yep.
And he writes about fourth turnings, and we're in one. But effectively, Jimmy Carr said that he's of the view that there's a revolution coming, and that revolution is because the elites will be overthrown. And I very much agree with that.
But just to be clear, when we talk about political elites, we're talking about the right and the left, yeah?
Yeah. This is not, it doesn't,
entrenched.
And it's not even political, it's institutional.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So it's not even political sphere, it's like universities, like they're all now being caught out. Like, what do you actually produce for the money that is spent? What's really going on in your campuses? Where's you've lost your way? What's your value? Like in Australia in particular, we've just had a whole thing that their governance is shit. High casualisation of academics, underpayment of staff. Like they've got serious governance issues before we even talk about the crap that they're producing and teaching.
Yeah, I get it.
But it's also it's everything. It's your elite class.
Yep.
And what we're getting to, and what Jimmy Carr alluded to, and very much the thesis of what our podcast, how it started, is they're just out of touch with reality. If you look all across Western civilization, media, universities,
Government,
they're out of touch with reality, and that leads to revolution. Now, Jimmy Carr made the comment, I think Konstantin Christen said to him, "Oh, well, that's not good because revolution." He goes, "Well, there are bloodless revolutions, and they said to him, "Well, can you name one?" And he sort of laughed. But I do believe, I think we are going to have a bloodless revolution. I don't think the guillotines are going to be set up. But people have had enough. Look at the Tory party. The Tory party's just gone.
I know.
It's all over.
And the Liberal Party's going the same way in Australia.
Yeah, and I think, to me, domestically for Australia, and this is a sad reality, but this is life, yesterday's events at Bondi present a political opportunity. If one nation takes on a few other people that can be their economic policy spokesman, their migration spokesman, their education spokesman, and they happen to be non-white, because there are plenty of non-whites that actually believe in it, but they reposition themselves.
That's right.
And a bit like at the moment, I also want to do one on France. Le Pen is mightier than the law, right? Because they've banned her, but National Front's about to win with the next guy, and they'll just drive through the agenda. So I think all around the world, everyone's sick of people that espouse that they know better and they've been in the decision-making and the power of influence, and quite frankly, we're fucked. We've gone backwards.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's time to go, you know what? You're telling the farmer how to farm. You're telling the mechanic how to mechanic. Like, just shut the fuck up, right? And just start listening to your people. We'll tell you what we want, and you do what a politician's meant to do, which is enact the will of the people.
But I actually see the opportunity for one nation as well, but the biggest issue they've got is the leader needs to learn to give it up.
Well, she probably needs to do what Marine Le Pen has done.
Just be the face, but then get the other people to do the serious politicking and policy making.
And maybe not even be the face, right? Because what happened is the National Front was started by Marine Le Pen's father, who actually fought in the Second World War.
Yep.
He was a special forces guy. So anyway, I can't remember his name, but he started National Front. Then Marine Le Pen's obviously taken over, but as she sort of become the policy driver, but not necessarily the leader and direct front, they're going through the roof.
I know, but the thing is,
and that's what Pauline probably needs to do. Step back in the background.
I think her ego precludes her from doing that, and I get that because she's built that
It's
herself.
her baby.
Which I get it. I want to move on to a couple of things. Entertainment, Dave, it felt safer in 2025. Fewer risks, more remakes, more algorithms. You say?
I think that is the problem. There's too much. And that was, again,
Well, you
Jimmy
touched
Carr.
this earlier, yeah.
Well, Jimmy Carr, again, he said in this same podcast, he goes, I wish I could remember who he said it, but he said this was in terms of television and film. He goes, the 21st century is just the 20th century on better screens.
Yeah.
Right? And it was remakes, people watching the old stuff, because the risk of being non-PC. So the Mauritian Queen and I, ironically, have been watching a show called The Price of Confession, which is a Korean show, right? So Squid Game I love. I think it's one of the greatest things ever done, just the pure, unique nature, the creativity, the thoughts behind it. Parasite. Have you ever seen Parasite? It's one of the best. Yeah. Another one. It's just wow. So creative. And this Price of Confession's another South Korean one. So we're picking up foreign stuff that are not infested with the woke mind virus.
I get it. So Dave, let's land this.
2026 better bring on Top Gun 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Or Talladega Nights 3.
So
Talladega Nights 2. I think it is coming.
Yeah, I hope so.
So let's land this.
I'm on fire, Ricky Bobby.
Was 2025 a good year or a warning year?
A warning year.
And just close that out for me. Give me just a bit more flesh on the bone on that one.
Well, I think it's we're at a fork in the road in Western civilization. And, without going into all sort of intellectual stuff and losing people, but the reality is, think about it this way. if you think Western society is so bad, it's such a, Australia's racist, the US is racist, the UK is racist. It was all built on this terrible colonizer. Like, nothing about it's any good. It's just crap. Why is it the migration patterns only run one way?
Yeah.
Why is it out of Africa, the Middle East, Asia into the West? Why is it not everyone racing from the West into all those other countries? Because the reality is they know what we have is the best. Now, is it perfect? No. Should we always be evolving and changing, improving? Yes, but you should be doing that on a personal level, let alone a collective one. But certainly, the opportunities that you have when you get here are far better than if you go the other way. And we've got a real life example of this. There were people celebrating in 1997 when the end of the lease to Hong Kong, and it was returning to Chinese rule. Well, the people of Hong Kong, for the most part right now, want British rule back, and they want their free speech back, and they want their private property rights and their rule of law, and they want those things. So when you look at history through the lens of time, you certainly should take out the parts that were fit for purpose for the day, but no longer are, the parts that were abhorrent and should never have occurred, but you should also take what are the positives that came out of it. At the end of the day, somewhere like Australia, you can go and protest and call it racist and carry on because we have a bicameral system of government. You have the freedom of speech. You have the private property rights. You have the rule of law that came about from the British. So this is not a nod to say, rule Britannia. This is just something to say, you're not going to drive the car safely if you only look in the rear vision mirror. You look in the rear vision mirror to see what's behind you to change direction safely. And that's the way you should be looking at life and running your country.
Well said, Dave. Now, Dave, can you just wrap up and give some kudos to the people who need to be shown a bit of appreciation, please?
There's no one, Tony. It was all me. It's always been all me. I don't think I need anybody on this Right to Be Wrong podcast. Low IQ individuals, especially that Tony Chech. I don't know why he's on, but I love the fat guy. Who's the fat guy? The bald guy. He's fantastic, but he's always wearing a cap. Is he wearing a cap because he's worried that he's bald, Tony? No, he just doesn't want to be seen out in the street and everyone annoy him. It's anonymity, Tony. It's anonymity.
On that note, thank you, Tony. It's been a great year. The podcast is working very, very well. Having you on, I love doing it. Whether or not we hit 1 million subscribers or it's still just, Paddy, Dom, Will, and the dogs, I still love doing it. Tom, producer Tom, thank you very much for all your work through the year. Great stuff. Without you, we couldn't do any of it. Mauritian Queen, honey, you get mentioned in 9 out of 10 podcasts as you like. Next year, it'll be 10 out of 10 because I know you're hassling me because you love hearing you get a mention. All your support, encouragement, and everything to make it happen, along with other things, have been great. To my little man, who's one of the subscribers and always checking to see how I'm doing, thanks very much. Paddy and Dom, I hope you're looking after Dad and listening, following along, and you're subscribed. Looking forward to seeing you at Christmas. And generally to all the friends that have been supportive, to Squarius in particular, that, again, push me to get it happening. And hopefully 2026 is the year that really takes off tone and we start doing it financially rather than as a hobby.
You got it, Dave. So what do we say? We wrap up. We wish everyone a Merry Christmas as opposed to Happy Holidays.
Yeah.
And we look forward to seeing everyone. We'll have people listening to us in 2026.
And that's something I do want people to realise. Merry Christmas. Stop worrying about who you offend. That's your country. They're welcome to come on board, but it is Merry Christmas, everyone. Stay safe.
What do we say, Dave?
You have a right to be wrong.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and we hope you enjoyed it. Like us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.